Hello and a very warm welcome to Moneycontrol. I am Shweta Punj. As millions across India and the world watch the consecration ceremony of Ram Lalla in Ayodhya, lakhs of devotees made their way to what was once a nondescript town that is now on the world map. There are estimates that Ayodhya, known to be the birthplace of Lord Ram, will attract more tourists than the Vatican City or Mecca. A master plan has been worked on to upgrade Ayodhya to become a major tourist hub. And one of the key contributors to the plan has been Dikshu Kukreja of CP Kukreja Architects that drew the blueprint for the master plan of Ayodhya. Thank you so much, Dikshu, for joining, and a big congratulations to you too, because somewhere while all of us marveled at the beauty of the temple, it was also the infrastructure of that tiny town that has seen a massive upgrade in the last few years. Can you take us through what's been the vision behind the master plan of Ayodhya, considering now it is already now a big tourist destination?
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you for the compliments. And yes, as marvelous as the Ram Mandir does look, it's resplendent in its glory. The city of Ayodhya also is quite, now the city will beckon given the demand for the heavy influx of tourists that are going to come in and the increase in the economy and other aspects of this city. So as a vision, to create a city here which would be steeped in its legacy, the cultural legacy, but create it as a global spiritual destination, as a place which is going to be a world-class tourist destination. And the third cornerstone of this vision of Ayodhya was to make it a sustainable city. It is not to be a city like many other Indian cities which are woefully inadequate in infrastructure and are perennially just doing a catch-up with the infrastructure requirements or demands of the city. Here is a city which has realized its potential and where it is going to be leading itself to in terms of being at the global stage. And accordingly, a clear vision has been created for it to become completely not only infrastructurally driven, but also be able to showcase the legacy, the historical, cultural values that Indian cities have, the diversity that Indian cities have, and be able to celebrate that. And in that sense, be a model for sustainable development and become a global tourist destination.
So fascinating, Mr. Kukreja, the fact that you mentioned that it's going to be a sustainable city, it's a city that's been designed for the future. I think that's very, very fascinating, because the fact is that a lot of our temple towns do struggle with crumbling infrastructure. So tell us what is different in Ayodhya. What can we expect now that the ceremony is over, in terms of the width of the roads, in terms of the flyovers and the highways that have come out, in terms of the water, the Saryu River boulevard that has been built? Just take us through some of those details.
So, in Ayodhya, there are going to be certain aspects which are visible to the naked eye. You come there and you see clean roads and wide roads and sidewalks, etc. But for us, it was more than that. It was deeper than that. This is a very, very special city. And it's a Tirath, place in that sense, a Tirath stall where people will be dreaming in their life to at least make one visit. So how do we make this the most memorable visit for a person is what we felt, that this city needs to be more experiential. And that doesn't become by creating modern edifices or glass and steel structures, but by going into the essence of what Ayodhya has been something which we have heard over narrations over centuries of what the Ram Rajya and Ram Nagari is about. So this city has been envisioned to be a city for the common man, which means there is plenty of public spaces which have been designed here. One is, of course, turning the river back to being the spine of a city rather than the backyard of a city. So the Saryu River, in all its glory, with beautiful ghats, will become a very vibrant public space, just the way riverfronts have always been in traditional cities. Added to that, the aspect of reviving 108 kunds or water reservoirs. Plenty of cities, Chennai, Bangalore, and many more examples where our lakes and water bodies get covered in the garb of development. Here we are reviving these water bodies. Then there's this whole layer of greenery coming into the city with gardens and public spaces and the spiritual forest. So green lungs being created in the city. And most importantly, how do you attract the city? How do you make it comfortable, livable for the common man or the common visitor who will come, the Aam Nagrik? So for that point of view, it has been made universally accessible. Minor details that even in the sidewalk, when you approach a road junction, how the curb should be of a certain height and how it flows down so that even a wheelchair can move itself comfortably. And the aspects of giving benches and light posts all in stone, creating these beautiful amenities which are simple interventions but make such a major transformation into the livability of a city. All these aspects are what a visitor to Ayodhya will be able to see. Not just shining glass buildings,
Right.
but something that will make it really feel that you want to belong to this place.
So, are there any regulations, Dikshu, regarding new construction coming up in the area? Because you said that that Ayodhya needs to be developed in tune with its heritage values. So one drawback that one sees in a lot of temple towns is exactly this: glass buildings in a setting where they stand out, in a very sober manner. So there's a big fusion of modern and heritage and all of that put together. How are you going to enforce the fact that new buildings that come up follow a certain code that blends with the ethos of Ayodhya?
That's a good question, Smita, because it's important that, you can envision something, but how do you make sure it sustains that way and thrives that way? So here what we did was, rather than taking an approach, we have actually celebrated the narrow alleyways and the by-lanes of the old city of Ayodhya. We are not running away from the fact that that is what the urban fabric of that city is. That's actually the beauty of the city. But we've only gone ahead with simple interventions which are going to improve that. For example, you have open drains, you have hanging cables or overhead wires, you have signage which is going all over the place, you have different buildings having different kind of proportions, colors, etc. So we've harmonized all this, covered those open drains, added a few benches along the streets, taken away the cables and made them underground, added beautiful stone lampposts there, given a uniform signage. So these become urban design guidelines. And once you have clear, visible guidelines, they become easily enforceable. Many master plans in our cities across India tend to be these documents which are two-dimensional documents painted red, blue or yellow to designate whether the area is meant to commercial, residential or public. Here we have gone with the age-old Indian philosophy which was in cities of Niche Dukan and Upar Makan, which means mixed-use development, which is such a healthy way to have a city vibrant 24/7, rather than turning into, like you have in Delhi, places like Nehru Place and Bhikaji Kama Place, which will become dangerous at night because they completely shut down. So we are talking about a vibrant, livable city here, and we are talking about creating the right balance of amenities and facilities for the permanent residents of the city and for those who will be a large number of tourists coming here.
Okay, I want you to talk to us about the role of the private sector in building this city, because we've had hospitality projects worth 3,800 crore launched. 85,000 crores are going to be spent to upgrade the town's infrastructure. So what's been the feedback that you've been getting from the private sector?
So I would say that the government and the administrators, the Ayodhya Development Authority, the Commissioner, Mr. Vishal Singh, all these people have played a very significant role in carving out how all these things should unfold. It's a very practical approach of not just thinking that all the capital infusion has to come from the government, but the way the vision document lays itself, there's a correct balance of where the infrastructure investment needs to come from the government and where you can have the private sector attracted into this area. So the fact of creating also a smart new greenfield township on the periphery of Ayodhya, which will also attract a lot of private investment, and even in other parts of the city. I think that's a healthy blend of seeing how a city can develop itself in a sustainable manner. If we are only going to be dependent on the government to create all the infrastructure, be it tourist accommodations, other kinds of facilities, then that never works. But here, by opening up this sector, and not just to star hotels like 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, but the fact that, the whole idea here of the Honorable Prime Minister as well, that, this city has to be approachable for all, livable for all. So the idea we came up with of homestays, the concept, because there are only that many number of hotel rooms that you can create for a city. But why not make this a thriving local economy which can flourish by bringing the concept of homestay? Now that becomes
so any model cities that you've looked at, Dikshu, for this? Have you looked at how Vatican was developed, maybe for to build a blueprint for Ayodhya?
No, so there was a lot of research that went into this. We did not just jump on the drawing board and start coming up with ideas. The research involved international examples like Vatican City, like Jerusalem, like Angkor Wat, like Pashupatinath, and all these places to take proper learnings, the goods, the bads, the successes, the failures. Similarly, domestically, we had to study the Indian diaspora. We looked at Tirupati, we looked at Golden Temple, we looked at many other places, Shirdi, Kashi, and understood from these places how you can actually, what are the learnings from there, and how do you make a city which is going to have the right infrastructure and quality when it's going to open its doors to the world, not get overwhelmed or crumpled with the demands that are going to follow with that, and yet be able to have that essence. Also, one of the important aspects for us was that this is a unique city where you're going to have, the ratio of the actual permanent population to the influx of tourists could be 1:10. For one permanent resident of Ayodhya, there will be 10 tourists coming here. How do you maintain the sanctity, the security, the safety, the livability, I would say, for the permanent residents? Don't take that away from them, and yet the place should be experiential and welcoming to the tourists. So that correct balance was very important to come.
Okay, very quickly, Dikshu, what are the kind of, considering the hospitality boom that we've witnessed in the last few months, in fact, how do you see that panning out in terms of prices, in terms of, the kind of benefits that the local economy will experience because of this?
Look, Shweta, there's always the perennial aspect of supply and demand. So here was Ayodhya when we started on the master plan vision document 2.5 years ago, with hardly any supply of accommodation or tourist facilities or hotel rooms. So obviously there's a huge demand. Until that comes somewhere close, you're going to see real estate prices. You're going to see many hotels willing to pay the roof through the roof to get a slice of the pie. But once that balances out, I think we will see that things are going to become more sustainable. But like I said, for us, it was not just about catering for X number of hotel rooms, which will take care of every tourist. We thought the sustainable way is also to cut across the economic strata, which will be visiting Ayodhya, and provide for a lot of dharamshalas. And besides that, this concept of homestay, which allows a tourist to get an actual feel of the city by staying with a local resident, hearing tales, hearing aspects of the city, and becoming a source of economy for the local local resident of Ayodhya. So I think all these kind of models of accommodation are going to fit in and balance out. But at the moment, yes, there's a huge demand because there has hardly been any supply.
Very quickly, my last question, Dikshu, any green practices that have been implemented in Ayodhya which hasn't been done in any city so far?
There are lots of green practices which have been put in here, but the first and foremost I can tell you is the concept that the Honorable Chief Minister also came up with, that like Lord Ram is known to belong to the sun, the Sun King in a way. So the idea here of making it a solar city of a scale that India hasn't seen yet. So being able to regenerate that power and use solar power for the city. Also, the concept of water management has been looked at very carefully, and that aspect of the Saryu River, the other water reservoirs which I was talking about, which are being rejuvenated in the city. The entire water management has been looked at very scientifically. Then the aspects of bringing in lots of greenery is a very important aspect here. The aspect of transport, sustainable modes of transport which are being brought here, and not taking, in all our other temple towns, you will see vehicles just running right over there and coming to even the most sanctum sanctorum places, the temple itself, the vehicles abound there. Here the vehicles have been kept away. You've created these beautiful pedestrian paths. So all these aspects are very new, and I think will set a model for development of not just temple towns across India, tier 1, tier 2 temple towns, but also it's going to be a model for, I would say, sustainable development of other Indian cities.
All right. Thank you so much, Dikshu, for that. We do hope that Ayodhya emerges as a model of sustainable development, not only in India, for the rest of the world. Thank you very much for joining us on Money Control. Of course, we'll keep tracking the story on moneycontrol.com. Thanks so much for watching.